School Board Vice Chair Kathryn Hensley recently sat down with Councilman Bowen and talked about a variety of education-related issues. Here's that conversation.
Thank you, Ed. And thank you, Kathryn Hensley, for joining me on TV20 to discuss the state of public education in the St. Lucie County school system.
I'm very excited to be a cheerleader for what wonderful things are going on in St. Lucie County schools.
We're here to talk about your successes, and the school district has been a topic of the last two council workshops. There's been a lot of questions from the city council as far as new superintendent and the state of the education system and some of our successes, and you're here to kind of give us a midterm report, and by all means, fill us in.
Let me start with just a little bit of history. We've both been here a very long time.
Yes, we have.
And when we moved here, the school system was under a court order. And all decisions, even of placement of schools, student assignment, how textbooks were selected, everything was done through the federal courts. So when I was elected to the school board a long time ago, we were still under the court order. Within 2 years, with a new superintendent, a different attitude of the board, we were out from under the court order. And then we became the directors of our own fate, so to speak. We still give federal reports twice a year about how we're doing, but we are totally on our own and have been since about 1999 on how we select our school sites, how we do student assignment, and that sort of thing. So we've come a long way since then. We do everything differently. We even do our textbooks differently. We do assignment differently. We are one of 2 school districts in the entire state that is a choice school district. Every child that comes into the school system gets more than one choice of school. And we have over 41,000 kids. So it is a major operation in student assignment. It's a huge operation in transportation because we transport a lot of kids. Anybody who's over 2 miles from their assigned school has a right to transportation. And children that have special needs or are in areas of concern with wide highways or whatever, they also qualify. So we have a huge operation. We have almost 5,000 employees. We are the largest employer in the whole region. We have the largest budget in the whole region. We actually have taken our jobs very seriously from where we were to where we are now. We were a very bifurcated system in the past. That means we had black schools and white schools, but what we found out by doing our study, we also had poor schools and rich schools. So we have made great strides in that, and we are one of the few districts in the country that has actually closed the achievement gap with minorities. So that's a very, very big thing for us because we are actually a majority district. We have over 50% of our students are some type of minority.
Well, I think most of the residents of Port St. Lucie, who are recent residents of the city of Port St. Lucie, don't realize the handicaps that were handed to the school board at one time, and how you have overcome those, and really are achieving a lot of successes too, especially with the children going to college. I think you shared that with me.
Well, we have more kids we have the same number of children, a little bit, actually more children than all 3 districts around us combined. Okay. So when you look at the numbers belie some of the conventional wisdom. We have a huge number of kids that go on to school. We are actually leading the country in a lot of different matrices. So we're very pleased with that. We were one of the few districts in the state that our kids achieved above the state level and made gains in every single core area. So we are belying conventional wisdom. We have almost 70% of our children who qualify for free or reduced lunch. So poverty is a big issue. However, they are still achieving at an extremely high level. And traditionally, they would say if kids are poor, they can't do this and they can't do that. And we know differently. And we are proving different. So we are the model for a lot of entities. People from around the world come to visit us, although most people don't know that. People from other parts of the country come to visit us to see what we're doing. We sent a team over to China to do some training for their educators last year. So we're doing a lot of things that are right. We're not nearly where we want to be yet, but we have created a pathway we think that will take us there to success for every child.
And your accomplishments are more than a letter grade. That's the rub I have with I read things and they say, well, St. Lucie County schools when you get a certain grade and the counties around us are getting A schools. Well, it depends. I'd I'd rather be a B student at Harvard, Kathryn, than maybe an A student at a community college or local college. So, what's in the letter grade?
Well, the letter grade was started a long time ago. We had a commissioner of education who thought that the idea of then the FCAT would be a great thing for diagnostic purposes, so teachers could see where their students needed assistance. The next phase was that was a way to give everybody a letter grade, a child a letter grade, a school letter grade, and a district letter grade.
I see.
What most people also do not know is that St. Lucie County has the demographics of the entire state. So that is a unique situation, which is one reason why we're looked at by outside entities as more than a letter grade.
Because of our diversity.
Through our diversity.
I see.
And we have, one year we had 64 different languages or dialects that were spoken in our classes. That's quite a conundrum because you have to find a common language, but those children will sometimes gain 2 or 3 years within 1 year because of the way that we do our infusion for bilingual students. So it's really, it's a great challenge. It's very exciting, and I think that what our community needs to know is that we are not reactive, we are proactive. And we are actually doing things ahead of what we think the necessities are going to call for. So we've done some things, we're involved with every single thing. And history has proven that we needed to be. Years ago, everybody was pretty isolated and pretty much as a silo. People who worked for the schools didn't go out in community and go with other entities and work with chambers or whatever. When Dr. Vogel came here in '96 and I was elected shortly after that, we actually kind of decided that we would craft our own path. That we started going to meetings where we were not actually even invited, and showing up at, if anybody was going to talk about education or talk about children in general, somebody was going to be there. And we started making inroads to try to craft real relationships, because everything the district does impacts the community, but everything that happens in the community impacts our students within the district also.
That's true.
So we cannot be silo people. We have to be working together with one voice on as many issues as possible. Education is a basis for our democracy, but it's also the basis for economic sustainability. So we have to be very, very cognizant of what's going on around us, and we do not have the privilege of saying, this is my job and this is not my job, because children and economic development is all of our job.
As we've been talking, very well put, Kathryn. Thank you. As we've been talking about that quite seriously with the City Council, economic development going hand in hand with education. Again, that's why your visit is very timely. Some of the stuff that came up in our recent workshops, joint meetings with the Board of not the Board of Education, but the school district.
Right.
I guess it's been done in the past. It was stopped. Your opinion, your comments on the past meetings and where we head in the future.
I think the meetings in the past were very stilted, and there seemed to always be a divide. I don't think there is a divide, and I think when we're on camera, that we need to be basically like the old round table concept, where we're actually sitting together and talking in a more collegial way and not just a presentation back and forth. I think we could accomplish that. I think it needs to happen. We need to pull that together, I think, in the near future. We need to have a better understanding of what everybody is doing. I need to know more about what's going on with the city, with the county, with Fort Pierce. And each of those entities needs to know more, or be, really cognizant of what's going on within the school district and what the plans are for the future of where we're going.
I agree with you. Again, the City Council has raised some questions, or not issues, but some questions. I haven't heard from the county commissioners or from the Fort Pierce commissioners on what their take is on the state of the education here in St. Lucie County. But again, a joint meeting, I think that was floated out yesterday at one of our workshops, and looks like that you could be the person to kind of spearhead that and get all the entities together, Kathryn.
I think we can sure work on that.
First of the year. And,
yeah, I think so. I think it's really important that we have a single understanding so we can share a voice on this issue. Years ago, when we decided we wanted to be something different than what we've been in the past, I guess what do we want to be when we grow up? The Chamber of Commerce in 1999 put together a higher ed task force to look at what we had and what we thought we would need. Then we had an economic development chamber meeting that was actually what created the Research Coast document, which is what our kind of our plan was of where we're going to go over the 20 years and how we're going to grow our community to be more diversified and be very sustainable. So we actually took that, we set for every 2 weeks for 16 months for this Research Coast Committee. And it was very lively conversation. Because first we had to share what we knew so that everybody had the same understanding. Then we had to do an inventory of what we had. And then the discussion is, well, what do we want to, this is what we have, where are we going to go with it? And then the school district took the Research Coast document and went back and retooled every single one of our high schools. So that our high schools are now in tune with that Research Coast document, although the Research Coast has not quite taken off, so our kids are ahead of the game. Yeah, but out of that came the opportunity to create collaborations that were very unique. We have a school agreement with Rinker School of Construction out of University of Florida. We have an agreement with Embry-Riddle for an aeronautics academy. So we have students through a simulator can crash an airplane, and when they're 15, they don't have to wait till they're an adult. And we have anybody that comes to town, we have an agreement with. So we have an agreement with St. Petersburg College for a 2-year degree program for vet tech. So we have created all these things that were in that document that, to give our kids pathways. Now, the entities may not have gotten here yet, but the pathways have been created.
Right. So if the jobs or the industries are created here, we have young people that are trained and educated or re-educated if they're a little bit older,
correct,
ready to step into those positions.
Exactly.
And we just need to bring the industry and the jobs and meaningful employment to the area.
That's moving forward very nicely.
Good, good. So joint meetings in the offing, it looks like.
Correct.
A couple more questions that the City Council had, certain members. You're going through a process now of the current superintendent is going to be retiring soon. She's done a very good job. I've met her personally and on a number of occasions. You're going through a selection process now, Kathryn.
Correct.
Some of the council members want to know how come they weren't involved or how come the city's not involved in the selection process. And they cited other communities where other jurisdictions are involved in hiring a chief of police or a sheriff or something of that nature. Your thoughts on getting other entities involved in the selection process?
Well, the process we've used, and we're using the same consultant. He's officially retired, but he does like us, so he comes back and works for us. And he's does great work, he has great record, and he guarantees his work for 2 years. So now we're looking for a superintendent that, so he's working for us basically for free because he's off his old contract. The way we have put it together was that we tried to make sure that the entire community is represented. There's a very large group that's in the selection committee.
Okay.
There's a public input piece where anybody who has an opinion can say, when we get down to the interviews, that all that will be on the web so people can go and put in their questions or concerns, or they, of course, everybody, they can call us, which is, you know, they do.
Sure, that's the old-fashioned way, Kathryn, but that's sometimes the most effective way.
We tried to take, I guess you'd say, elected politics out of it.
Smart.
So we have a huge number of people from our community that were asked, and some volunteered, to be on this committee. They take their job very seriously. Last time we were going around where we ended up with the one person who seemed to be the strongest actually had some serious health problems and withdrew. And then we hired our deputy for 2 years, and she's done a very, very nice job. So we tried to take elected politics out of it, but try to make sure that citizens, educators, and parents, we have a lot of the business community that are involved. All the meetings are open, so anybody can attend, whether they're officially on the committee or not. Anybody can attend when they do the interviews for the different candidates. All the questions will be out there, and people can put in questions if they have something specific they'd like to see asked. That can be facilitated. So we intend to have someone, you know, maybe by February we'll have some names, and because of the Sunshine Law in Florida, as you know, we won't know a lot of names until the very last day, because if they're a Florida person, they may not wish to be able to put their name out there too early.
So you have basically a process and transparency on the whole selection process. There's a committee going
right.
on.
And we don't even know who the names are. The school board doesn't even know who the names are till towards the end. But
you have a support group of 30 plus that are helping you.
Right.
We go through the process of selecting the next superintendent.
We have used the same process basically since we've had an appointed superintendent with some refinement.
I see.
And when we hired, we were elected as superintendent for a long time, which was a political office and was very political.
I remember that at one time.
We decided that because I was the president of the League of Women Voters way back. And one of the concerns was that there was no direct line of command, so to speak. School board in St. Lucie County has 2 employees. We have our school board attorney and our superintendent.
Okay.
So years ago when it was elected, we had 1 employee, and there was nothing that said that the direction of the school board had to be actually followed through by the superintendent, because who was also an elected official. So to make it so that there was really a professional organization, it was important that we had an appointed superintendent. About half the counties in Florida now have an appointed superintendent.
I see.
All the large counties have an appointed superintendent. The state of Florida having an elected superintendent is sort of an anomaly in the country. So
it's not a process we want to go through again.
Right. So one of the concepts was that every elected superintendent should act like they are appointed and know how to build teams, but every appointed superintendent should act like they're elected so they know how to build community. So that's worked fairly well for us. We are involved in everything. Our superintendent sits on the Chamber of Commerce, the EDC board, we're on everything. And as you know, I personally have, 30 to 32 committees, depending on
You're everywhere,
the day.
You're everywhere.
Because when people don't understand that transportation is a key thing in our community, it's very important in school districts. We're one of the few school districts that actually have a voting seat on a transportation planning organization, so it's pretty unique too. So we take that very seriously. So we're trying to be everywhere, and we try to make sure that part of our job, and our job as elected officials, is to build community and to be the liaisons. So we need to be out there everywhere.
I agree.
We need to be taking the concerns back and addressing them, which we do regularly. We have a policy meeting at least once a month. And we need to be sharing the good things that are happening with our students, because we are setting the standard in many, many ways for our students. They're looking at our kids. We have international science winners. We have all these things that often do not get in the press. Right now, we do not have a PIO. We do not have a communications director. You have in front of you 2 documents. I would like to always have a communications coordinator. I am 1 vote of 5. So
I know how the process works.
Yes. So these are our 2. This was in the local newspaper.
Right.
And because what we know, and you know also, is that we cannot rely on the newspapers to tell our positive story, because good stuff doesn't necessarily sell papers.
I understand
And
that
so
quite well.
controversy does, even if it sometimes appears to be contrived and manufactured. I think that this is the copy of the Florida Law Book that we are responsible for enforcing.
It's pretty thick.
And it's thicker now. This is an old copy.
Okay.
Okay, it's thicker now. When I got on the school board 18 years ago, we had a half a page of state mandates, and they were all funded. By 2000, we had 2 full pages of laws that were mandates, and most of them were not funded. So the shift has happened in that the state obligation, which is, by the way, the only paramount duty in the Constitution of Florida, is the education of children.
You didn't know
Just
that.
so you know. And
Thank you for educating me. You are an educator. So
our Constitution is a little bit interesting, but the only paramount obligation in the whole document is education of students. The definition of children is 18 or under, unless they're special ed, which it goes up to the age of 22. So that is the only paramount obligation in Florida. However, the shift has changed over time to take away funding. The pod is still the same pod, but the number of students has grown significantly. So the per FTE, the amount of per student has gone down year after year since 2006. One year we had to cut $27.8 million out of our budget. Hard choices, but as you know, being an elected official doesn't mean that you get to coast. Hard choices are every day and everywhere, and you make people unhappy sometimes, and I think sometimes we haven't had enough barbecue for those oxes that have gotten gored. But you know, we are working diligently to make sure that every single child has the best opportunity that they can. And our choice system, I think, does that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you were able to stop by and share that with us. And again, that's, the success stories we want to hear about, and they're numerous. I know that. And again, thank you for answering all the misinformation or some of the legitimate questions that some of the members of the community have.
Well, and everything that we put everything on our web page. There's all kinds of information on the web page.
Okay.
Our budget's there, our policies are there, everything is there. And most people have my phone number.
I was going to say the old-fashioned way still works once in a while.
And email.
Email.
And what I want my community to know, I've lived in Port St. Lucie since '83. I would like for my community to know that we are transparent. We have the first transparency award from the state years ago, as a matter of fact. Wow. We are the first one to receive a OPAGA award for our budget, being very conservative and getting the most bang for our buck. We're the lowest, second lowest in the state for the cost of administration per student. So we are very, very frugal. We take use of taxpayer dollars very seriously, but more than that, we take the education of every single child as our passion.
I'm very thankful for that. And two other quick things before I let you go. The parents' involvement in the school system. I know I was involved with my two sons when they went to Lincoln Park, and even all the public schools here in St. Lucie County. How, in your opinion, how important is involvement from the parent to make or break a student's success?
It's extremely important. If a parent is involved with their child, by the way, we're Kids at Hope County. Okay. Okay. If a parent is involved with their child, the chance that child being successful, regardless of a disability or a significant ability, is enhanced. We know that. However, we know that some parents either don't have the modeling to do that, or because they're working 2 jobs or whatever. So we are Kids at Hope County, which means that we try to make sure that every single child has somebody who can be their guardian, so to speak, during the day. Make sure they look out for them, be someone they can talk to, give them encouragement. We don't look at the negatives, we look at the positives. We don't do kids at risk. Don't do kids at risk anymore. We do Kids at Hope. And while we build on their assets, their risk factors go down.
So I'll leave that on this happy note. Kathryn Hensley from the school board, thank you so much for being involved in the community you have over the years, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure.
TV20 and caring about Port St. Lucie. God bless you and your family.
Thank you.